Hey there, my name's Drew Brashler, and in this video, I want to show you how to use the Alpha Labs D-Feedback unit with the Behringer X32 expansion card, either the X-USB or the X-Live. Now, if you're brand new to my channel, I'm all about helping you feel more confident with your production gear, no matter where you're starting from. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, in a previous video, I was showing you all about D-Feedback and the differences that it makes when you have it on and versus off. I mean, I was able to speak on a lav directly in front of the PA. Here, check this out. I have done a little bit of ringing out of the microphone for when I'm up actually on stage. And we can still get some of those benefits here at front of house. There's basically two kind of room nodes that I really took out with some notch EQ. And so let's go ahead and see what we can get here. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this on. And so here is my mic. And what's great is it sounds just fine. But we can see and hear there's a little bit of feedback there. Check 1, 2. There's just a little bit of ringing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn this up a little bit more. And check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so at this point, this is right where it's starting to feedback. And as we can see on this, and I'm gonna display that on the screen, we can see that feedback happening and we can hear it. And my max SPL that I'm seeing is about 74 dB on the SPLC fast. So check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, I'm seeing about 74, maybe 75 dB. And if I was to take this a little bit more, check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I would definitely be getting into that feedback. So now what I'm going to do is, while you guys are watching, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the D-Feedback. Now, I am still just as loud. So we can see on Smart that it is still very loud, but now I have a significant more amount of headroom to be able to take this microphone. So check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4. And as we can see, it's starting to give a little bit of feedback. But what's interesting, as I talk more, it removes that feedback really well. So this would be distracting, but I'm at 82 dB in front of the PA, and that's just really crazy. Now that's pretty nuts. So with D-Feedback, option 1 is the computer that I ended up purchasing. And I also purchased the Focusrite Scarlett Solo audio interface. But what if we wanted to use the USB path on our console? Now, this is mostly going to be for someone who is not already using the USB interface. If you are using the USB interface for broadcast or playback of tracks or anything like that, I would not recommend utilizing the USB path for D-Feedback. I would recommend using those aux inserts and doing a physical patch into for instance, a Focusrite Scarlett Solo. But if you have an expansion card on the back of your console and you're not currently using it, or if it's the X-Live and you're just pressing record on the SD function, but then not utilizing the USB path of it, then this is kind of a perfect video. So on the actual console, there's a few things that we need to set up first before we actually get things set up inside of the computer for D-Feedback. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go to Setup, and we want to go all the way over to our Card tab. Now, with this card, I'm going to end up setting this to 32 in, 32 out. You can definitely do any of these other options. Just for me, I had it set to 32 by 32. The other portion is the playback config needs to be on USB interface. If this is not set to USB interface, it's going to be reading tracks being played back from the SD cards, in which for our case, we're not using that. We need to have it on the USB side because I need this computer to connect to this card. Now, if you have an XUSB or an XUF card, Basically, the only option that you have here is the 32 in, 32 out. And then one other thing that I need to mention, if you go to your card tab and you're not seeing this, you need to layer down to layer 2. So this is your layer 1 where we'll be able to press record, and here is your layer 2. The next thing that we need to do is we need to set a few routing things inside of our actual console routing. So what I'll have you do is I'll hit routing and then go to your block input tab. Now, for me, I have my microphone being plugged into my local 1 through 8, and I'm going to leave all the rest of these as local. If you're utilizing AES-50 like a stage box, you can change that. But our aux in is the primary spot that we need to change because we are going to utilize the aux insert method on the X32, but utilizing the USB function of the expansion card for actually sending our audio to defeedback and then coming back. In which case, this page is what we actually select for our audio coming back from the computer. In which case, I'm going to go to aux in, and I'm going to rotate this down until I get to card 1 through 2. Now, if you have the Pro version or the option 2 version of the defeedback computer, you can definitely go and send 4 instances or 6 if you lower that buffer size. But with the option 1, you can either have 1 at super low latency, or you can have 2 instances, which I have another video on this, of defeedback on the option 1 computer. So in this video, I'm only going to be showing you the 1 instance, but it's basically the same thing as the other video for getting 2. So in this case, I'm going to select card 1 through 2, which basically on my auxes sets my aux1 and my aux2 to pull audio back from the computer, and then leaves auxes 3 through 6 to be still pulling from the aux ins on the back of our console. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to tab over to card. Now, when we're looking at this card page, this reflects what's being sent from our expansion card to the device that we're connecting to, not coming back. The back portion was over here on the input, but card is actually what's being sent from our console to the computer, or basically to the expansion card. So what we want to have on our block 1 through 8 is selecting our aux outputs. So I'm going to rotate this down until we get to aux 1 through 6 mon. And so this is going to send our auxes from our insert on our board to the expansion card, then to the computer, then coming back to our expansion card, coming into our aux ins via our input patch right here. The very last thing that we need to do is we need to go to our aux and make sure that aux out 1 is set to insert and aux out 2 is set to insert as well if you're utilizing 2 instances. Now that we have this set up, basically our console is ready to interface with our computer. I'm going to jump over to the computer side and show you how to get this set up. So I am here on my defeedback computer, and once we open up the VST host, we want to go to devices. Now, you will need to install the X32 driver for Windows on this machine. So I already did that. And so we can go to my download folder here, and we can see that I have the Behringer X Live version 5.72 installed on this computer. Now I've already installed that. And so once we have our VST host, we want to go to devices and then go to wave. Now this is where we actually select the audio interface that we're utilizing with VST host. Input port is always going to be set to no wave. Don't worry about it, it's totally fine. Output port, this is where we actually select our ASIO device for the audio interface that we're using for this computer, in which case I'm going to go and select my XLive ASIO driver. If you have the XUSB, you'd be selecting the XUSB driver. If you have the XUF, you'd be selecting the XUF driver. So in this case, XLive, I'm going to go ahead and select this. And then for sample rate, I'm going to set this to 48,000 Hertz, which is the sample rate of my console. We can either have 48K or 44.1, in which case my console is running at 48K, so it's going to be 48K. The next thing that we want to do is we want to set our buffer. Now, you will notice that there is an 8 and a 16 down here. Now, I have published on my blog, which I'll link down in the description below, some latency numbers as far as the X32 with this system. Now, you will notice that you're not actually able to get a latency with 8 samples, like for the buffer. It just doesn't work. I was able to get 16 samples and 32 samples working. So just keep that in mind. You'll want to make sure that you select the correct thing, in which case I'm going to go ahead and select 16 samples. The next thing that we need to do is we need to go back to the Devices tab and go to ASIO Control Panel. Now, once we are here, we are wanting to make sure that we enable safe mode. Now, safe mode is important because if you look at those latency numbers that I published on my website, there is no good things that happen when our safe mode is turned off. Now, safe mode basically adds in a slightly extra buffer to make sure that audio is processed correctly and doesn't have extra pops and drops and clicks. And so for our case, we want to make sure that this is set to safe mode with the check mark. Now, if you try to change your buffer size here, it will quickly change and then it will go back. The only place that you can change your buffer is in Devices under Wave, and it is set right here. So 48,000 hertz, 16 samples is what I'm going to be running, which with this 48K and a 16 buffer with safe mode turned on, the total latency of the insert, including the insert of the actual aux inside of the board, is 5.6 milliseconds. Fantastic. Very happy about that. You really don't need to worry if it's under 10. Once you're above 10, then you need to be a little bit more careful with what you are doing. I wouldn't suggest putting this on an insert for monitoring, for instance. I would want to have my vocal mics going to a bus and then insert this plugin on the bus rather than inserting it directly on a vocal mic, because we don't want the artist to hear that drop of sound. But if you do end up using this one on the monitor console, just make sure that you're on the lowest latency that you can go, which 5.6 honestly really is not that bad, and most musicians wouldn't really notice that much latency. But if you're mixing front of house, especially in a smaller room, you don't really want to go above 15. If you're mixing in a much larger room, you can go between 15 and 20. But once you're in that 15 to 20 range, your front row, as they're listening to a person speak on stage, is going to hear not only the voice coming directly off of that presenter on stage or that vocalist on stage, and then they will hear the PA slightly later. So I wouldn't go above 15 if you can. But if you're mixing broadcast, you'll notice that your video is going to be more latent than your audio, in which case you can select a higher buffer because we have more time that we can utilize for then matching up to video later. But now with our thing here, so when we go Devices Wave and we select the XLive ASIO driver, set our sample rate and our buffer, we will notice that we have some metering happening right here. So if I go and grab this microphone, we'll notice that I have already inserted this, which let me show you how to actually get this inserted. So with my microphone here, I have this being sent to my mix bus 1. And then mix bus 1 is being sent to the stereo bus. Now, this is the very important thing that you need to make sure of, is that your channel, if it's being routed through mix bus 1, which is then going to that left-right, that your channel itself is not going to the stereo bus or the left-right bus. It needs to go only through one path. So it can either be D-feedback inserted on the channel, and then the channel is going to the stereo bus, or you can insert D-feedback on the bus, and then have the channel feed the bus, and the bus feed the stereo left, right. I'll show you what happens if you have both of them set up here in a minute. But select bus 1, hit the home, go to the config page. And then right here is where we can go and set our insert. So on our 6th rotary knob, I can go down and select aux 1. And then I will press connect. And then once I've done that, you can press insert. And now at this point, this microphone is going through the expansion card to the computer into VST Host, and then being processed by D-feedback, being sent back over the USB interface to the expansion card to come back into our bus 1, which is then being sent to the stereo left-right bus. So at this point, we can hear, and if I turn off my head mic,
we can hear that this is working. And so if I go and into my defeedback and I mute this plugin, you'll notice you can't hear me, which is correct. We want to be able to mute defeedback and make sure that our path is coming back in correctly to the console. Now, if you notice that you're hearing any pops, so for instance, right now, there's a little bit of pops happening. So what we can do is we can go up into our devices, go to Wave, and then we can change our buffer to, instead of 16, go to 32. And then we can press OK. And at this point, now we should have less pops and drops. But one thing I want to mention is if you're messing around with some of the settings and routing inside of VST Host, my suggestion and the suggestion of Alpha Labs is to close VST Host, and then it will reopen back into these settings. Now, at that point, then these audio drops and pops that's currently happening during this video, which is surprising, would stop. So at this point, we can hear that there's no pops and drops happening. And we can see that my CPU interface is running about 37%, which usually it hovers around 30.
Now, what I was wanting to show you guys was what happens when you have the mic being sent to the stereo bus, as well as the mix bus that you have the plugin inserted on going to the stereo bus as well. And this is the sound that it makes.
And it's very robotic-y. As you can hear, there's a very robotic-y sound to this. And what happens is that my channel 1 is being sent directly to the stereo bus, as well going through this bus being sent to the stereo bus as well. And so once we undo the stereo bus from the single channel,
then that will go away. So when you're setting this up, just make sure that you decide, are you wanting to insert it on the channel? And if you're inserting it on the channel, you can feel free to leave that channel going to the left-right bus. If you send it through a subgroup like we have done here, then we are wanting to insert it on that bus. Now, with this bus setup, I did not show that to you. So the one thing that we're going to do is we're going to select our bus 1. We are going to go to our config page and then set this to post fader. Once you do that, it will ask you to confirm. The next thing that we need to do is we need to go to sends on fader with bus 1 selected, and we want to turn up any of those microphones that we want to have processed by defeedback. And then once we're happy with that, we can undo sends on fader. And then this bus just needs to make sure to be sent to the stereo bus, which is the very last thing. So I hope this video was helpful for you today. If you do happen to have any questions, or there's a video that you're hoping that I would make on defeedback, or really any other production equipment that's out there, please post that in the comment section down below. I'm always reading through those comments to find videos that are going to be helpful for you. If you haven't already, make sure to check out my website at drewbrashler.com, where I have a whole bunch of articles, tips, and tricks, as well as some digital downloads that you can purchase for the X32, the X-Air, and the Wing. And you can see that over at drewbrashler.com. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day.